Hey there, this is Mike and Jamie with Flex Academy, focused on an episode talking about designing a great co-working tour. Designing a great co-working tour can be one of the most important aspects of your sales funnel. It ensures that your customers have a great experience when they first see your space, and you can really set these tours up in a great way so that they're completely tailored to the product that your customer is looking for. And with that, let's jump into it. So one of the first important things that you need to do whenever you're communicating about your tour to prospects is make a great first impression. This is both digitally and physically. Whenever someone first signs up for a tour, whether they do that through your website, through a form, through a software like Calendly, it's really important that you have a great follow-up email. And what I mean by that is an email that should describe to them exactly where your space is located, how to get through any special areas, how to open the door. If anything is out of the ordinary when first coming to your co-working space, it's very clear that you set that expectation to the member so that when they come to your space, they know exactly how to get into the front door and exactly what they need to do to get at your front desk. As the slide said, they should not arrive feeling frustrated. If it's difficult for them to even get into your space, it's going to really just set a bad tone for the rest of the tour. So it's super important during that initial communication that you make it extremely clear how to find your entrance and get in the front door. Jamie, anything else you want to add there, or was that clear enough how important that first step was?
I have a pro tip, which is ask someone to sort of shop you and have them book a tour and then go through the process. Because I think because we know our locations and our buildings so well, sometimes we just don't think about what the user experience is. So I did a podcast episode on a tour that I did locally. I was thinking about joining the space, and it was so hard for me to find the front desk. And it was like, I was mind boggled by how they could think anyone was going to find the front desk.
Yeah.
And I think they knew where it was, so I think get somebody else's perspective so that you can find holes in the experience, because you want it to be as easy as possible. And having someone shop you will help you identify where do we need to add extra signage in case somebody doesn't read our email, or what kind of cues can we put in that email.
That's a really, really great point. Having fresh eyes look at it is going to make all the difference. And whatever feedback they give you, obviously you can incorporate directly into your both physical and digital experience of accessing the space.
Yeah. Okay. So then once you get into the space, I recently toured a space in DC, and I have to admit, I think I was like jet lagged and a little bit tired, and I wasn't touring to join. But when I got there, I got to the front desk, which was very easy to find. And there was someone at the front desk, but they also had this little spot on the front desk that had my name, and they had a little packet of like branded M&Ms. It had their brand
Wow.
colors on it. And a chapstick. It's really kind of over the
Wow.
top. I'm not saying you have to do, all of these things, but I was so delighted because I had like a little, low blood sugar, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy right now. I thought it was like such a fun little touch. And again, it was, branded with their stuff. I put it in my bag, took it home. Now I'll think about them. Anytime I pull out the chapstick, the M&Ms are long gone, by the way. But
yeah,
it
makes a difference.
I love
It
that.
shows that
And
they
I thought,
gave an effort,
yeah,
like they really cared about it. So that's awesome.
yeah. And we talk a lot about like hospitality. I think that's one of those little things. It's like when you get to the hotel and they have the warm cookies or, whatever. It's like
Yep.
those little things. And then they, of course, offered, beverages. They had kind of their hospitality area behind the front desk, which I also thought worked really well. So they had sparkling water on tap, which I love. Separate topic, but and then they had this really great coffee machine. So they offered me, a cappuccino. So I just love like sort of the extra welcome measures and sort of that surprise and delight upon arrival. And if that's the kind of experience your member is looking for, that's a win right off the bat. And if they're not a fit, then it may have no impact on them. But I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something memorable. It's crazy how many places that I've toured don't offer coffee. And it's a simple thing like that that can just make the experience for someone, whether it's a coffee. Another thing that I like, we don't have it up here, but is actually a physical brochure. Now, some people might think these are old school, but in the spaces that I've toured, I love getting a little booklet or even just a one pager with beautiful pictures and imagery of the space, so that when I go home, I throw it on my desk or whatnot. It's top of mind. I see it. I I remember it. So it's obviously up to you. You can do a lot of this digitally these days, but I love having some sort of piece of paper that I can take home or, put in my backpack or whatnot to review at a later time. So those are just some ideas of things that you can surprise, delight, give to people when they get to your space that will really help them remember your space even more. All right. So moving on and deciding where to start. Now, people are going to come to your space looking specifically for one of your products. We did a whole nother episode on building your co-working product mix, but you obviously should know your products well and understand what this person is looking for. Are they looking for meeting rooms, event space, private offices, dedicated desk, or just open area seating? And you want to essentially tailor your whole tour. We'll get to this in a little bit, but around the specific product they're looking for. And so there's a couple ways that you can decide how to start. If you've collected this information beforehand in that tour form fill out, they might say they're interested in a private office. You can take the necessary steps at the beginning to make sure that they're fully educated about your private office offerings before you give them the physical tour. Obviously, if they're not interested in private offices, you don't need to focus on those and you can jump right into the specific thing they're looking at. So yeah, you definitely should train your staff so that there's a consistent way that you start the tour. Maybe it's a little story that you tell about your space, or it's dependent on the product, but you definitely want to work with your staff so that you have a certain kind of entry point and every single tour starts that same way. Anything else I missed there, Jamie, or anything else you'd add?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about being really intentional. And
Yeah.
Mike, you kind of started to transition into talking about like, okay, have a plan. And I
Yeah.
remember when you operated your co-working space, you were super intentional about the tour experience. So I'd love to have you kind of talk about like your route and your tour script and what you were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so a big part of it is, walking the space alone, and later in the day when no one's there to try to understand what's the optimal flow that they're going to come through your space. Because you want to touch on a couple high points. Obviously, you want them to see the busy areas of your space where people are interacting. You want them to see the kitchen areas. You want them to see any highlights of your space. And it's important that this is, again, just a repeatable route that you can go on and time the tour to finish, I'd say in about 15 minutes. Obviously, they can last a lot longer if there's questions, but you also don't want to drag on for too long. And I think 15 minutes generally gives them a good enough opportunity to learn about your space, for you to learn and get more information about them, and really make that an impactful tour. They're coming to tour your space, but this is also a really good opportunity for you to interview them as well and really understand, again, what they're looking for, how you can best sell that to them, or provide a mix of your offerings across your space that makes sense for them. If they're looking for a private office for their team, you could sell them meeting room space and private office space in a package or something, so that their whole team can take the benefits, of your space. So it's really important that you listen to what they're looking for on this tour, and connect with them. Connect with them, whether it's co-working interest, shared interest. It's an opportunity to really meet this person that's walking through the space. Another thing
Yeah,
that we
and
did.
it's
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Jamie.
I was just going to say, it's like going on a date, right?
Yeah.
You want to feel like somebody's interested in you. I've only toured one space where this happened ever. They asked me zero questions about myself, and I was
Really?
considering joining. And I could not even believe it happened because I was like, don't you even have some slight genuine interest in who I am as a human?
Yeah.
Much less like, I mean, they asked me what product you're interested in, right? And I said, I want a one person office. So she showed me the one person offices. She didn't ask me where do I live?
Yeah.
Like,
If
am I going
you've
to
been to
bike? Am I going to
co-working space
drive? Like,
before, yeah.
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you really want to take a genuine interest in the person and even do some research. We could do another episode on this, but we always trained our team, look, tours up on LinkedIn and get some sense
Yep.
of like, what does their company do? Anything you can sort of find out about them without being creepy, but, make a little bit of a connection
An
with
effort.
that person. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just shows, how important that community manager at the front desk really is. They really are doing a lot, and selling is an important aspect of their job. And these sometimes tours just walk in unplanned. You might have a form on your website, but there's plenty of people that just say, "Oh, this looks interesting." They need to be able to give a tour at any time, really, to any type of customer. So making sure this person's adequately trained is so important, and it has a tour script, and they've been approved, and that you feel like they can confidently give the tour to anybody. And one other thing that really, really helped me is, we used Office R&D at my space back in the time, and we had an iPad. And in Office R&D, you can have a list of the floor plan with all of the prices and when all the people are leaving for all the private offices. So we had probably 50 offices at our location. It's really hard to memorize all of that, or even keep printed sheets out consistent. And so having an iPad that you could carry around with your live floor plan is really impressive to, first of all, the people that you're touring through, and also just literally gives you up-to-date information about when this office is available and what rate you can offer right there when they're in front of it. Another thing I want to highlight is if you have any cool technology pieces. I know that we had door access, and back in 26, you see it everywhere now, but back in 2016, it was newer, and showing people that you could unlock, doors with your phones got people really excited. And so little moments like that are obviously great to throw in and make sure that you repeat, on your demos as you go through.
Even the meeting room app, I mean, Office R&D has the white label
Yeah.
meeting room app, and I think one of the advantages is how easy it is to book from your phone. And I think potential members also think that's cool. They may not be used to that, and certainly they don't
Yeah.
have that in their home office.
No, you're so right. Pulling out your phone and saying, "Look, we have an app for our co-working space. It's called, our co-working space name," and just show how easy it is to book those rooms. That technology is a part of the experience. Obviously, the physical space is very important, but the technology and even the community manager are such a big part of that experience. They need to be thought of as well during the tour. All right, next one. So you've given the tour, you've taken them all the way around the space, shown them all of the important things. What's next, Jamie?
Yeah. Well, one other thing I'd add about the tour before you kind of get into the close, if you can introduce them to a current member, that can go a long way. If you have a current member
Yeah,
who is like pretty friendly and doesn't mind being interrupted occasionally, having them say hello and some, authentically nice thing about the space can make a big impact. And to know they're happy there and that, they have a relationship with whoever's giving the tour, I think that can make a big difference, even if it's really brief. That's really impactful.
yeah,
And
it
then
definitely feels a lot
once
more
you
welcoming.
totally, yeah. And sometimes that's exactly what people are looking for, right? They want to see that sort of personal connection. So then probably the most challenging aspect is closing the tour. We do a lot of work with this with our community manager group because the community manager usually is really great at connecting and helping somebody feel seen and understanding what they're looking for. And then the end of the tour comes. So, Mike, to your point, you want to make sure you practice this, have a couple, have a plan, like
Yeah,
what fits our culture in terms of, how do you close? Probably assume that they're touring other locations. So, you want to be kind of on top of it and act like, you sort of know what's going on and give them a really specific plan for how to join when they're ready. And
yeah,
Michael, I'd be curious to hear what you say. Some people will try to get people to sign on the spot. I think that's harder today than it ever has been because usually there are multiple options in a market and folks are touring and they may need to like go home and think about it or talk with their team before they pick a location, but you can certainly offer that, on a tablet or,
yeah,
an extra laptop or whatever it is, like have a way for them to, if they're ready to sign up, close the deal.
yeah,
um yeah, but be prepared with like, okay, how do I wrap this up so it's not awkward and that, you do your best to sort of like move into commitment phase. One question that we love to ask is, can you see yourself as a member here? Which is a great way to surface objections because they might say, well, I'm concerned about Zoom calls. Like if I have a lot of Zoom calls, where do I do those?
That's
And
a great
that
point.
gives you a chance to, address those there before they leave and they don't tell you what their concern is and then they ghost you and you have no idea, how you could have, sort of gotten them to join. So, yeah, Michael, what else would you add about the closing process?
No, you're completely right. It doesn't hurt to ask them if they are looking around at other places, and again, understanding the market and where you might be stronger and weaker than those other places. I mean, there was multiple times at my space when we would send our clients to one of our competitors down the street that had an amazing meeting room and event space when they were looking for really large events. So, and hopefully they'll do the same back to
Yep.
you. But being aware of the market around you shows that you know what you're talking about, and you're really trying to help this person fit into the best office product and office situation. And just being knowledgeable of what they need, based off their demands and what they're looking for is really going to help sell your space. In terms of follow up as well, Jamie mentioned, some people like to sign up on the spot. It's rare, but it does happen occasionally. And so, yes, there's ways that you can give them iPads and help them self sign up, enter their credit card right there. Another thing is whatever software you're using, you should have the ability to send them digital kind of follow-ups to sign up, whether that's a contract that they can very easily e-sign for an office, or whether it's like a direct link to sign up for a hot desk membership in a follow-up email. You should make it really easy for them to action and take the next step at your space. And I'll tell you, making them sign a physical PDF document or sign on a PDF and send it back takes a lot of time and adds a lot of friction to your sales process. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in our next episode. But you need to have a really strong kind of final action that you can send them to move them to the next step and close that deal. Anything else you want to add, Jamie?
No, I was going to say, I think sort of a natural topic to talk about is, and maybe we'll talk about this in our next video or another video, is just what does that, sort of ongoing sales process look like if they don't sign up right away? How do you keep them engaged? How many times to follow up? What does that look like? So there's lots to kind of dive into here, but I think we've given you some things to think about in terms of curating that tour experience, making sure you have an intentional plan and making sure that your team is trained on that plan.
Perfect. Well, guys, thank you all so much for joining us today. As we mentioned, up next, our next episode is going to be on optimizing your co-working sales funnel. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Flex Academy, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.